Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 76 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I am Sarah.
And I'm Rob.
How are we doing, Rob?
We're doing all right.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Welcome to our those out there in live show land. We appreciate you joining us and the conversation. And obviously posting the cat pics. Those are wonderful and always fun to see.
So you had a game last weekend.
I did, and you were in it.
And I was in it. How do you think it went?
From a Game Master's perspective, I think it went exactly as I wanted it to, because I didn't try to do too much. I kind of actually settled myself on some simple goals that I wanted out of it. And took the time to follow all the guidelines that I set forth for myself with social interaction.
Yeah. I gotta say, I was super impressed with your NPC work.
Thank you.
Most of all, I think all of your NPCs were very well fleshed out, had a lot of personality to them. You did some really good voices for them.
Thank you.
And especially like at the end when the plot resolved itself and the traitor revealed themselves to be the traitor, and we all kind of decided to drag them to the town hall and humiliate them publicly and expose them before all of their friends and family.
Yep.
I could really feel the tension in the room because everybody there, I suddenly had a stake in everybody's personality there, you know? So it was a really good job, and a lot of punches right directly in the feels for me.
Yes. I had established, as I said to you, that event line for your character, and well before the campaign had started, I had made this idea.
What he's talking about is our characters who had been wished 280 years into the future, into some post-apocalyptic BS had happened. And essentially somebody wished on a magic lamp for us to come and fix it all because we were legendary heroes. You know, so it's like wishing for the Avengers to show up, and then suddenly Tony Stark and Black Widow and everybody get uprooted and just plopped in this post-apocalyptic wasteland going, what do we do now? Well, we wished for you to fix it. Go fix it. So
the story says that you'll fix it, so fix it.
And so
now you're discovering things.
Consequences of what happens when you wish for something to get fixed.
Yep.
And so we walked into this town, and somebody I'd never met before called me by my name and grabbed me and kissed me and said that he was so glad that I was home. And then a little girl ran up and called me mommy, and that's where we ended last game session. So
this game started with that, where I kind of brought that all together and let you decide whether or not you were going to continue the fallacy or let them know that you were not who they think you were.
I had to rip his heart out. I had to rip that guy's heart out and tell him that his real wife was dead. And that I was not who he thought I was. And
she wasn't.
And that she wasn't who he thought she was.
Yep.
The whole thing was a lie. But don't worry, I'm going to get you some healthy helping of vengeance.
Yep.
And it was a very emotional game. It was very well done.
So effectively what I had done was, while the players weren't there for the 200 years, someone had stepped in and created a false version of them to rake in rewards and kind of continue the prophecy, if you will. And so each one of them had a counterpart that they did meet. And yours
my doppelganger,
your doppelganger was actually quite nice. Didn't expect you to actually exist, and unfortunately, you eventually found her dead on the road.
Yep, we used Speak with Dead, and she told me who killed her, and so
asked you to deliver a note to her lover.
My little winter witch is on the warpath now.
Yep. You got a reason to be around.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I had to do another little side scenario for one of the players who wasn't able to make it due to some real-life shenanigans involving furnaces. But we were able to wrap that up the other day, so he's caught up with the game now and is looking forward to bringing his knowledge and everybody else's knowledge together and kind of meet what I'm probably going to say is going to be almost the halfway point.
Okay.
So we start the downhill run from here, I think.
Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So was your side session just 4 hours of him babysitting my daughter?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. Your quote unquote daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. And then what happened and how that all got resolved.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, because today is another system spotlight for us.
I do have one other thing I want to do before we get into that.
What's that?
We have a friend who had a birthday today.
Oh, that's right.
We had a dear friend who she's a tabletop gamer. She's not necessarily a role player. But give it time. She might step into that. But we'd like to wish you a happy birthday. We hope you're having an enjoyable day.
O tanjobi amadeto.
Oh, that's very thoughtful. Mm-hmm. So we wish you a happy birthday from the show. But we do have a system spotlight to talk about because we do like our miniatures.
We like our miniatures, and we like our robots.
We like our robots, and one of the first...
We like BattleTech a lot.
We do. I haven't played it much, but I do really enjoy it. I do really enjoy it.
No, this was high school for me. This is all high school.
See, and I played more of the digital games than the physical games. I played very little of the actual tabletop game. I played a couple games with friends, one where I got to fire some long toms because they just put me in the corner of the board and said, just kill these people.
Long toms are artillery cannons that measure their distance in maps and not hexes.
Correct. And we actually had a really long game for that one. But beyond that, I played Crescent Hawk's Revenge and some of the very early games, and then later on Mechwarrior and the most recent BattleTech game. But I've gotten back into it a little bit through one of our other storyteller listeners, and printed a few minis with him, and we played some at Gen Con, and then we played a couple small games here. Yeah. But with COVID, it's been shit trying to get back to that.
It really has, yeah.
We need. I want to get back into it because it is such a neat universe.
It's such a neat universe, and I'm so just very enthusiastic about the world building that they've done. It's not exactly hard sci-fi, but it verges on it.
I think it really does. I think there's enough there that it has some of the. It is not as hard as I would say. Some stories that we've seen out there, more recent stories. But I think it definitely clicks into kind of like the Battlestar Galactica, where it's a little grittier, a little more like every moment's a little scarier because, someone built this, and that someone probably built it at cost, kind of a thing.
What do they say? Life is cheap, battle mechs aren't?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and what's funny is that this is also from, was started in 84. So we've got 36 years of world.
I know. Yeah.
And changing hands and companies didn't really change the story.
Right.
We still have everything that was there.
So, BattleTech started out as a little tabletop miniatures game called Battle Droids, actually, in 1984.
Which it couldn't keep that name.
Produced by FOSSA. But they had to actually change the name from Battle Droids to BattleTech because George Lucas sued them over the word droid.
Yeah, crazy. That man wanted to own things.
First edition BattleTech is technically Battle Droids. When they rebranded it as BattleTech, that's when second edition BattleTech came out. And that was made by FOSSA, the same people who made Shadowrun. Back in the day. So very much like we've talked about before, FOSSA was amazing at world building. They had some of the best world building, some of the worst rules in the in gaming, I think. But you could not beat their world building, and BattleTech was no exception. Now, when FOSSA went under in 2000, the license was picked up by WizKids.
Yes.
Who are actually the license holder for the current license holder actually for D&D.
Yes,
and for Magic the Gathering.
And they produced a hero clixy game for a period of time,
right? Called Mechwarrior Dark Age.
Yes, which honestly, the prints of that stuff wasn't too bad. It was a little, I mean, it was the hero clicks kind of prints, but it was easy access miniatures for people who kind of got a flavor for it, but. There was a lot of people who just didn't like the way they handled it because it was basically HeroClix.
It was basically HeroClix, and especially coming from what was then branded as Classic BattleTech, it was very. like the greatest thing about classic BattleTech is that you could put anything on the table that you wanted.
Yes.
Whereas when they turned it into a collectible clicks game, you had to hope that you got that battle mech in a booster pack.
Yeah.
You know.
And the sizing was wrong. Flat out wrong.
Yeah, just flat out
like
wrong.
100-ton mech looked about the same size as like a 40-ton mech. Mm-hmm. And that was just silly.
Yeah.
Like, the urban mech was huge in their little click set.
No, it's a trash can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little trash can with a gun on it. But I digress. So anyways, FanPro, actually a different company, held on to the rights to the classic BattleTech game. Mm-hmm. So basically, WizKids only bought the rights to like the setting and the name.
Yes.
And then expanded on that as the Mechwarrior Dark Ages. But then FanPro held on to classic BattleTech, and they did a little bit with that throughout the time. They kind of expanded their classic rules until the current owner in 2007, Catalyst Game Lab.
Catalyst Game Labs.
Yes, Catalyst Game Lab bought the BattleTech license, and they've been doing wonderful stuff with it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is BattleTech?
So the best way that I can describe BattleTech as a whole is it is a tactical miniature game using hexes and traditionally D6. We'll say D6. It's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah.
Because D6 is used in all of the components, whether you roll a bucket of them or just a few.
I think it's always 2d6 for BattleTech, though.
Some of the missile rolls, people tend to do some extra stuff. There'll always be 2d6 for each one of your missile sets.
Oh, okay, there might be some optional rules.
Yeah,
but yeah, okay.
But you may still get a brick of two sets of 2d6 so that you can just roll all your missiles at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, that's still an enjoyable thing to do. But it's still, for the most part, a miniature tabletop game. It's technically a board game, and in many ways, BattleTech can be played DM-less, with just the players working through the rules and interactions as they come across.
A lot like Warhammer 40K or Fantasy Battles or something like that, where you're just two opponents on either side just facing off with your various soldiers.
Yeah.
But whereas you can play BattleTech like that, I think that leaves all the good stuff on the table, or off the table, I should say, as it were. Because to me, I think that the juicy thing about BattleTech is not the combat rules for it, but honestly the world building.
I agree.
And the absolute rich universe and history that they have created behind it that led up to giant 2-story tall robots slugging it out in the streets of some planet in the 30th century or 31st century.
And why old ones, literally centuries old machines, are still being piloted current day.
In fact, if you do find one of those century-old ones, you got yourself a keeper.
Yeah.
Right.
Because sometimes their tech is different and, in some cases, better.
And lost.
You know, and that was one of the more interesting components of it, is because when you look at something that is 100 tons, a moving tank that has been machined and designed and built with all these ridiculous weapons and systems and integrated with the pilot in such a way, which some of that integration changed the storyline, but for lack of a better term, that Mechwarrior is important as the thing. If that Mechwarrior died because, you know, it took a salvo to the cockpit, you know, or whatever, they would literally scrape him out and put somebody new in there. Because that thing was the machine. That was the reason battles was won. A single battle mech could take on a battalion of light vehicles and troops without a question. And that made a huge difference. And so from that, you'd have these century-long wars that kept going, and honor and nobility, as well as mercenary groups and traitors who wouldn't follow those rules. I mean, the term bachal of instead of saying, hey, we're going to take your planet, but instead of literally planetary bombarding it, we're going to have a nice Napoleonic battle on a field of choice, and we will bid, you know, because our force is this big, we're going to bid this many to you, and we see your force is this big, so, you know,
what are you going to defend with? Well, I can defend with 2 companies. Well, okay, fine. If you're going to defend with 2 companies, I can take it with 1.5 companies.
Right.
Well, if you're only going to take it with 1.5 companies, I can defend with a company and a support lance.
There we go. And that's the kind of thing that would happen. But if you lost your planet, fair and square. And that was the honorable. You were done.
You saved all those resources.
Right.
So the world building, we'll stop dancing around it. The world building for BattleTech, in a nutshell, is mankind discovers faster than light travel. Several hundred years in our future. Was it 2500s or something like that? It's space folding technology. So the ship is here, and now in an instant, bam, the ship is there, several light years away. Because we can now travel several light years in the blink of an eye, we start colonizing the stars.
Yep.
And we create what is called the Star League as we expand ever outwards.
Yep.
However, the Star League eventually gets so big that it cannot be ruled. Central rulership starts failing. Basically, the goings on Earth, on Terra. Cease to understand the plight of the little folk in the outer rim periphery states and stuff like that, and they start getting upset.
I think actually a good comparison at this point in the timeline would be Firefly. It is the opening point. That would be one of the systems.
Actually, I'm probably for those who maybe even haven't seen Firefly.
Yeah.
As rare as that is, it's more like the American Revolution, honestly.
True.
Because we were being ruled from over in England, and they didn't understand our plight all the way over here across.
And honestly, didn't care.
And didn't care.
Yep.
And so that started happening kind of with the outer rim periphery states and stuff like that. And so a guy by the name of Ameris the Usurper essentially got them all together and started an uprising. They killed the first Lord of the Star League, and the entire thing collapsed under its own weight, essentially.
Yeah.
In amongst all this fracas, a guy by the name of Nicholas Kerensky, who was basically one of the top generals, took about
amazing general
80% of all the military assets of the Star League and left.
And effed off.
And left. They literally hit the edge of explored space and kept jumping. And nobody knew where they went. And so left a lot of the remainder of the colonized worlds with no means to continue fighting.
Yeah.
Or at least they had to back up onto like really old technology and the scraps of what they had left afterwards. The Star League shatters into what are called the 5 successor states, which are 5 major star nations that are all basically spend the next 300 or so years squabbling over who gets to be the next First Lord of the Star League.
Yeah. And they fight in all kinds of ways, get mercenary companies, battle, smatter at each other with, like kitty claws, oh, I'm going to take this planet, oh, I'm going to take these planets, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the whole time there are groups trying to, there's few groups trying to keep everything together and say, hey guys, we need to stop fighting, you have your space, we have our space, let's keep this, let's keep this as clean as we can, because if you don't, like, this is all going to fall apart again. One of those being basically the navigators who were trying to keep all the space travel going on, and the other was the communicators, the ones who were trying to keep communication between worlds.
Space AT&T, otherwise known as Comstar.
Comstar, which is a name that comes back again and again. And
it's kind of where, like, I think what verges into some of the hard sci-fi roots in BattleTech is because of Comstar's importance. And I think it's maybe even takes a slice out of Dune.
But, very much so.
In a way, because when you're dealing with, light years and interstellar distances and such like that, what is the one thing that is almost impossible to do over those distances? And that's rapid communication.
Yeah.
I know, like, Star Trek gets around this by saying, oh, subspace communication. Okay, what the hell is that?
Right, whereas...
And it's just like you're making a Skype call with someone who's, like, 80 light years away.
Yeah, where they kind of explained it as it took a lot of power and a lot of energy to create a small bubble, basically, of the same thing that they used to transport the ships, and then they punched through that bubble to make communication to another identical bubble that they know exactly where it is in space.
Light speed email.
Yeah, is effectively what it is. And without that, how do you know how to communicate anywhere?
So Comstar is an organization that holds vast power in this universe because essentially, as some people have joked in the past, they are space AT&T. if we shut off all the phones right now, how easy would it be for the world to function?
Well, I mean, and much like Dune or any of the other ones, is that, if they didn't want a planet to be taken over or somebody to go out, they would literally just cut their communication line, and suddenly they were like, whoa, we're sorry, what are we doing? Like, we'll stop this war right now, please put the phones back on.
So the communicators that do this, these interstellar communications are called hyperpulse generators, HPGs. And if anybody ever even thought about making military actions on an HPG, everybody, including Comstar, would jump on them.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
It's real bad. So, it's very interesting the way that the world is put together, because you've got a resurgence of nobility, and feudalism has come back.
Yep.
You've got some really the factions between the successor states are really interesting. There's some real cool cultural influences of how our Earth cultures have translated into intergalactic cultures. And how basically the universe as a whole has reacted to widespread colonization. And I don't think it's certainly not as cynical as anything like Warhammer 40,000.
No, I would say that is very much.
I think it's probably its closest neighbor, because you get in the fast future of the 41st century there is only war, but and it's kind of like that, but it's not really like that.
No, I think it's closer to, in some ways, like feudal Japan, where you had warlords who would do movements and things of that nature, or even feudal China in the early days, where you'd have small takeovers and things like that.
Sure.
And I think there are a lot of in Europe did that to a degree, but there's a lot of parallels that then also came in later, which when Kerensky came back from the periphery and decided to just wreck everybody's shit.
Kerensky does eventually come back in the year 3050, and he brings all of his kids with him.
Yeah.
And they are
juiced up
because while everybody else was skirmishing and bickering over who gets to reinvent the Star League and essentially kicking each other's butts all the time so that nobody could recover, Kerensky was honing his military forces into literally a eugenics program of
of perfect
warriors, and came back with technology that essentially pitted them on a 2-to-1 strength ratio over any of the stuff that we have.
I mean, any one of his mech warriors who were genetically designed could easily take on an entire battalion by themselves.
No.
That was the concept behind it.
Not a battalion, but it was at least 2-to-1.
Yeah.
It's at least 2-to-1.
And they had superior technology as well, some with their own mechs. They had upgraded and moved through the technology tree of themselves of saying, well, this isn't enough, we're going to do this, and created.
So their lasers hit harder, they ran cooler, their missiles fired farther.
Or faster.
Yeah. So a lot of that sort of stuff. So that kind of brings you into the second age of Mechwarrior, where you've got the clans come in, and their big idea is, we're going to conquer all of you Inner Sphere barbarians so that we can set up the Star League, because obviously you guys can't get your crap together.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of history that happens with that too, but we could be here all night going over the history.
But I think it's a good place to pause it.
But suffice to say, I mean, we could go on all night about the world building of BattleTech,
And it's a super important part of it. But keep in mind, just like with Warhammer or some of those worlds, this was all just to keep up the tactical game that was set there. There was, at that point, very little that was being impressed upon the RPG side of it. But the scenarios, the stories, the reasoning why you're continuing this battle, other than to say, oh, I'm still at war. No, it's House Liao has reason to be in this stellar space with and asking your mercenary company to do these things, and that you had stuff at that level to the small stuff of hey, we've got these, clans who are coming in and taking our space. We don't have anything to defend ourselves except for food. We'll pay you in food if you come here and defend us.
Yeah.
And hold our planet.
Yep.
So
let's talk a little bit about the game's systems behind all this fabulous world building.
And it's changed a little bit, I would say. If we step away from the tabletop game, we're talking about the RPG. We had the original one, which kind of mimicked FOSSA's original storytelling behind their Star Trek game, which it was very I'm going to say it crunchy. And had a lot of tables, had a lot of numbers behind it. I want to say used, as I said, a D6 and a D10 as primary dice, but there were some other things that went into it. But there was a lot of...
This is Mechwarrior, not BattleTech.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah,
so
early stuff.
A little context, because
Yeah.
I think we skipped ahead a little
That's
too much
true.
here. So what you're talking about is when they eventually came out with the tabletop rules for how to run out of the battle mech, like the personal storytelling that we all know and love as a tabletop role-playing game.
Yes.
And that was released under the name Mechwarrior, which I know probably a lot of you know the video game Mechwarriors and stuff like that, but that's kind of where that came from, was this Mechwarrior tabletop role-playing game. Eventually, they cleaned it up a bit. I played 2nd edition when that came out. And it was... Going back and looking at it, I think it felt very along the lines of, like, I think if GURPS and Palladium kind of had a baby,
I mean...
and it hung out with BattleTech too much, it might grow up to be MechWarrior 2nd edition.
Okay, I could agree with that. I could also see some direct parallels with Shadowrun, early Shadowrun, in the way that there was a lot of character development that was included in it, but also a hard breakdown of skill sets and tactical sets and things that made your character unique, quirky kind of things.
Yeah.
So it fit a lot of those early things, but also in just the mechanics of building your character. You didn't have a lot of systems that time D&D didn't do it, and some of the other ones, but or even World of Darkness, but it was a point buy system, in a different method.
Yeah. All your XP became a currency with which to purchase and upgrade your skills and such like that. So I think that was kind of a new concept at the time, and so we got to give them a little credit for doing that as well.
Trying something different, and for the most part, for a system that was exceptionally technical and had a lot of straight rules, that it was trying to refine itself, whereas most role-playing games that had tactical elements were the opposite.
Right.
They were very flexible when you got to the table. So,
now, MechWarrior RPG has gone through some changes. There was a 3rd edition of it. Let's see here, and that got republished then as the BattleTech RPG.
Yes.
Which was just a reprint of 3rd edition.
Right.
With all the errata included.
Right, they just packed it all into one.
Right. And
versus
now,
having tons of extra books.
Catalyst Game Lab have, they said they rewrote it from the ground up.
It looks very similar.
It still carries a lot of the same look and feel. But so it's still very recognizable from its roots. But it's been written from the ground up to address a lot of the balance issues and such like that. And it's now called BattleTech: A Time of War,
which I think works really well.
Yeah, I like that.
I will flat out say, with over 500 books in the BattleTech line, finding BattleTech the RPG guide is hard.
God, I know.
It honestly is hard.
There's so many books and expansions and technical manuals.
So much.
It's such a huge property, and then of course you figure in even map sets and
oh god. You and that doesn't even go into minis.
Yeah.
Or any of the other. I mean, there were, when I looked at it, there were 5 or 6 full releases of the Star map, the Star League map.
What did you say it was? 505? 505?
It was 505 that I found, and that did not include minis, dice, shirts, or any of that stuff. That was just literally the books and errata.
Yeah, books and errata.
Not novels.
No, that's
no
the
novels.
History of the game, though.
That's the history of the game. That's all the way back to the game. Yeah.
To current. Okay.
And it did include some of the German prints, which there were direct prints of those. So
sure,
in that sense. But it didn't include any of the novella either, which there are tons of that.
Tons of that. Yeah. some of the best stories I've ever read. I've ever read.
So getting into that, one of the things in character creation that did intrigue me about it is life path.
Yeah,
which I thought was
a really unique
neat.
way of doing things.
Yeah, I think D&D 5th edition tries to do a flavor of that a bit, in the way that basically
they have your background.
Right, and it's two flavors. You basically your history and your current a little bit. But BattleTech went through and actually said, like, okay, here's where you started. This was your early life education.
Here's where you were born.
Like, you were born a farmer, or you were born a noble, and you got certain things from that. And then, like, you went to school, or you went to the police academy, or you went to whatever, and you learned these things. And then as you got older, you did this. I joined a mercenary company, or I worked for House Liao, or I was a station guard, or I worked for Comstar, and you got those things. And then you had, even beyond that, like, extracurricular things that you could do that was on top of that. And that's a whole method of the way their character is. And it's basically of that, or just straight up point buy, where you're like, I'm going to buy all these things and just make my character.
I think it was, we discussed, Traveler 2nd Edition does things very much like that, where you go in 4-year stints.
Okay.
Basically, and you can actually just keep aging your character, essentially, by 4 years at a time, and gaining more experience. But, of course, you get older, and that has an effect on your character.
Exactly.
So if you want, you can do a wizened old codger, or you can do a young whippersnapper, one way or another. But as you add these modules on of experience, you keep going. Yeah.
One of the ideas I had for a lance for BattleTech was for our group was the Silver Foxes, and they were all older BattleTech warriors.
Oh, I like that.
And all their mechs had the paint stripped off of them back to the bare metal, so you'd have these oddly, like, looked like they were just literally scraped because they've been through so much.
No, that's just a cheap way to get out of painting your minis.
Hey, I'm just saying, you do what you do. You do what you do. Although it'd be really cool to paint them and then strip it off in places to make it to do that kind of stuff and give it little blackened marks and pocks and things like that, because they'd been around.
There's ways of doing that.
Yeah,
There's ways of doing
definitely.
that. I'll show you some techniques with an airbrush and liquid latex.
Well, there we go.
So, all right. The BattleTech itself, aside from so we discussed like the out of the mech role playing sort of stuff, but even in the mech, there's a certain amount of tabletop role playing you can do simply because all the situations.
Oh God, yeah.
And characters behind the people piloting these things.
Yeah.
The tactical game is really just nothing much more than what you're going to be doing in D&D 5th edition, anyways, with a grid and some terrain. And rolling some dice to work that out. It's the exact same thing in BattleTech, only you're using hexes.
Yep.
And a lot of that is, I think, one of BattleTech's drawbacks is that on the surface it looks really intimidating.
And we're talking about the table game.
Yeah, maybe not to people who play like Pathfinder and they're used to adding and subtracting a bunch of floating modifiers to figure out what their end
or even
result is.
Shadowrun, yeah.
But Shadowrun. I mean, if you play Shadowrun, BattleTech's gonna be easy for you. But I think that the great thing about BattleTech is that once you get into the flow of it, you realize that all the charts and modifiers and stuff of that are very procedural and very easy to remember.
Well, you can literally play the game with 2 sheets of paper. And your mech sheet and 2 sheets of paper, and that's literally all you need. I have a hard time thinking of any other tactical RPG that does that. I mean, D&D 5th edition, you need a lot more than 2 sheets of paper, even for the DM screen.
Oh, yeah. I played Warhammer Fantasy a lot back in the day, too, and it was the same thing. Yeah. You needed the entire book next to you at any given
time, because this place and this group and this group were radically different, and you had to have all kinds of stuff, and it wasn't very easy. I mean, even if you roll back from 5th edition to 3rd edition, like, the weapons chart was a pain in the butt. We were talking about that. Like, is this a D12 or is it a D8 or is it two-handed?
Are you using one hand or two hands? So
is
you
it
get
3 times
1.5
crit?
times your strength modifier, but it's a 3 times crit, and crit's on
crit
19
range,
and 20.
And it's like, okay, that's one sheet to itself, and we're not even talking about armor.
Yeah.
Like, am I encumbered in my armor? Do I not get my dex modifier?
Right.
Yet, it's literally fire the laser.
What's my touch AC?
Yeah. Is this thing within contact with me? Is it within 3 hexes, 5 hexes, or 12 hexes?
It's did I move?
Yeah.
Yes. Did they move? Yes. How far? There's your second modifier.
Right.
Are there any intervening pieces of terrain?
Yeah.
+1 for the light woods between you and me, and 1 for the one you're in, so that's another +2. And then, do I have any current heat modifiers? No. What's my range? Medium, that's another +2, so I'm +6 this turn.
There we go.
My gunnery is 3, +6, that's 9. I need to roll 9s on 2d6.
There you go.
You just learned BattleTech.
That's it. Like, it's again, sounds like a lot, but it's not. And then they created it so it could be scaled up, meaning, hey, if you just want to shoot and walk around and until someone falls down, great, you can play that game. Oh, you want it a little challenging? Here, now you have to manage heat. So here's a little heat register. So when you fire or walk, it's going to go up, and it's going to go up, and you have to cool yourself down. And here's ammo. You got to keep track of ammo when you fire your lasers or your machine guns, okay? Whether it's a burst or whatever fire. Oh, that's not enough? You know what? There's a little fleshy dude inside of your cockpit, and when you fall down, he's going to bump his head.
All right, this is a family podcast. We want to hear about your little fleshy dude?
Hey. But, I mean, and that's the thing, is that they kept expanding to those levels, but you don't have to play with those levels at all. And again, you're hard-pressed to think of other games. I mean, yeah, D&D does have grittier realism, but you literally are changing rules. You're not adding, necessarily.
Exactly, yeah.
And you make decisions on whether or not you're going to do that as a whole versus what you're going to do as a scene, necessarily. Whereas BattleTech, you could do it literally scenario to scenario that way. So,
and that's I think without even talking about any of like the expanded systems that they've done as well. Now, keeping in mind that I'm actually not terribly well versed in Catalyst's library of new BattleTech products.
Right.
So I deeply apologize for that. But what I am very familiar with was Foss's old catalog. Because I played this all through high school, and they did things like Aerotech. That's all your naval battles. You want to find out what happens before you make planetfall, when the dropships and the aerospace fighters are all zipping around fighting in the atmosphere of the planet? That's Aerotech. You want to figure out what happens on larger scales, because fighting... 12 battle mechs versus 12 battle mechs is a long commitment all day.
It really
playing
is.
with those. So, if you want to find out a company versus company, you can do Battle Force instead. Battle Force was a scaled-down version of BattleTech that allowed you to group your mechs into groups of 4.
Takes it to the macro.
And takes it to the macro. And so you had a lot of more tactical, swifter, but larger scale combat. You want to go even larger than that, they offered something called Planetary Assault, which I understand now has been rewritten as Interstellar Operations, I believe, is the new book for Catalyst.
Sounds good.
And that literally takes it to a global scale, where you're moving around on hexes that are the size of, like, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania.
So you're dealing less with individual units and more with... I'm going to use this group to attack this quadrant.
Whole companies, literally 12 battle mechs, makes up a single unit in this, so...
It's more like Risk.
Yeah, moving whole battalions at a time, fortifying areas, establishing, forward operating bases, stretching your supply lines as you advance on your enemy, harassing their flanks and stuff like that. It's all... it doesn't even use a hex map, really,
Yeah.
And so if you want, you can get that big with BattleTech. And I'll tell you what, it's stupidly fun.
Yeah, it's more of spreadsheets and numbers, but still enjoyable.
For the armchair strategists among us, it is stupidly fun.
So, as a whole, in my opinion, I see BattleTech pretty much as a good board game with miniatures. That has a rich universe and the ability to, just like anything, because of that rich universe that goes down to the micro and as large as the macro as we were talking about, where you're dealing with whole sectors of space and what the meaningfulness of that sector of space is and the resources therein, you can easily run a nice campaign. You could have a 5-person game, which is very appropriate, and have those 5 people be a group where you have maybe one of them as a Mechwarrior who goes out and comes back, and you don't necessarily even have to run those mech scenarios. You can just, randomize that section of it and have it return and have repairs and have all kinds of stuff that go on in the social aspects, and even like ship-to-ship stuff where you're stealing, gear to try and keep your mechs running and things like that, know?
I mean, just infinite possibilities within the world building for things that you can do from the small scale of minor nobility in some weird periphery state none of us have ever heard of makes power move on other minor nobility, all the way up to the Fourth Succession War,
exactly.
Where the entirety of House Davian and House Steiners banded together and tried to destroy House Liao,
And you're caught in it.
And you're caught in the middle of it, as maybe a house regular, or maybe you're a mercenary, or maybe you're just a planetary garrison who didn't like it when the Federated Suns made Planetfall.
Or worse yet, you're a member of Comstar defending your one little comm center.
Yep.
And someone does something stupid.
I mean, just infinite possibilities there. And I think that's one of the greatest things that makes BattleTech cool. It's such a deeply designed universe. You've got such a rich political background. All these different things that you can go for on a small scale to a gigantic universe-altering scale.
Yeah.
Well thought out technical logistics. So you can jump around the universe, but it does still take a lot of time because they've really gone into the depths of how logistics and stuff like that works, in their space system.
And the system itself does that with character creation and saying you're not just a bunch of skills, you have a history, just like everything else in our system. We want you to have a history, a reason why you know what you know and where you are in your life. And to help you with that, because not everyone is super creative and can look at all of this data and parse it together and say, I want to be an X. Now they can look and say, oh, yeah, I could start out life as this, and then do this, and then do this. That sounds really cool.
I've got a question in the live chat from Knox in the Box, and I do want to just say, I'll get to that in just a second. That's an excellent question. We'll be there. I like that there's different rules for different levels of engagement. Obviously you've got all the way down to out of the mech as a person, all the way up to moving whole companies at a time. And of course, like I said, you've even got alternate modes like aerotech and stuff like that. They came up with rules to city tech for fighting big urban battles and such like that. So, honestly, I really suggest it. If you really want to look into it, if you're a bit of an armchair strategist, you kind of like a war, a war game, where, conflict is kind of the key, and you're not going to necessarily be doing the, I would say the day-to-day adventure-y travel sort of stuff that you are in D&D. If you're more akin to just wanting to get into some combat, but you're sick of dungeon crawling, give BattleTech a look.
Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely give BattleTech a look.
Yeah, I would agree. All right.
Questions.
Where do you want to start?
I want to start with the one that came up in live chat.
Okay, go for it.
Knox in the Box asks, how do you write stories for a war campaign?
I think there's a lot of different levels to it.
There's a lot of different levels to it, but I would say initially my reaction is just like you write any other story. Okay. You have the player group. You have some sort of impetus for the player group to get involved in a conflict. Okay, so whether this is the mayor comes to them while they're sitting at the tavern and says, hey, I need to hire a band of adventurers.
Right.
Or, in this case, the sovereign of some planet comes to you and says, we're having a lot of problems with pirates, and we would like to hire your mercenary company.
Yep.
Okay, so we have an impetus for the player characters to get involved. We've got a group that they are going to be in conflict with, at least at the setup, which is the pirates. Okay. Ideally, you're going to want some sort of a dramatic twist in there.
Yep.
So maybe they get hired to go fight these pirates. They show up. Maybe the pirates aren't really pirates, but they're actually like refugees. And it turns out the people who hired you are the bad guys.
Yep.
And they want you to quash these refugees and stomp their uprising.
Are we working for the baddies?
Right. Maybe they betray you to the pirates because the pirates make it, blackmail them in some way and basically say, hey, get rid of these mercenaries or else. Maybe a third party jumps in and suddenly you're fighting a two-front war between the pirates and somebody else. But, have some sort of dramatic twist there that complicates measures and then, let them fight their way out of it. You're going to have the same sort of complications that you do like in a D&D game, where you're going to potentially have casualties. You may lose some resources. You may gain some resources. Maybe there's your treasure at the end of it isn't going to be a +1 longsword, but maybe it's a battle mech. You headshot and were able to salvage.
Yeah. Again, there is very little difference between worlds.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes down to why are they there? What are they there to find? What did they find instead? How does that change them?
Mm-hmm.
And then do it again.
Yeah.
And it's just a slow progression. You don't have to have the entire thing written out. Take it mark by mark and build. Let them help you build that world.
Exactly. So yeah, pretty much just like you'd write any other story, just on a larger scale with more robots.
Yep.
All right. So
Matt Elf's got a question.
yeah, the Mad Elf has a couple questions here.
Favorite game iteration of the franchise?
Battle Force by far.
I still like the traditional BattleTech, like the and I like the digital versions, but that's what I've gotten used to. But just the small team, the Lance running against Lance, you know, defending the world. I love that kind of stuff. And City Fight was huge for me. I loved the City Fight rules. So being able to run down a street and have a chance that your mech slides and runs into a building.
And then collapses the building because it was just this
Or take down the building that something's standing on.
Oh, yeah. Collapse it out from under him and watch it just come down, a big pile of rubble.
Yep.
They added a lot of those rules to the BattleTech video game.
Mm-hmm. They very much did. For the interested in story color setting, would you recommend any fiction written about the setting? I'd recommend a lot of the fiction written by the setting. I don't recall. I read 2 of the books, but I don't recall. I want to say one of them was based off of the name of the game that I originally played, which was Crescent Hawk's Revenge, I think. And there was a follow-up to that one, but I can't remember it. But I'm sure that if I say in live chat that Overwatch should list out some of the books, he will remember them because he is good like that. So look to, if you're interested, Matt Elf, take a look in live chat, and I'm willing to bet someone there will have a direct answer for you of what a good book.
Live chat channel?
He might, and if he doesn't, he can definitely DM, and we'll put it in there, and we'll put it in the question discussion.
I would say if you're gonna get interested into the fiction of the BattleTech universe, I'm not up on any of the new stuff, but to introduce you into the clans and the clan invasion and stuff like that, I think the Blood of Kerensky trilogy.
There you go.
Was where I got started, and I think it's a really great place to get started in the series. It kind of puts you right into the action. It introduces a lot of the major characters in the universe, and pulls you from it shows you the transition from the succession wars into the clan wars,
which was heavy,
which was basically the biggest shift in BattleTech history. And so it walks you through all of that. You get to know all the major characters and stuff like that, and that'll get you set up, and you'll get interested from there. If you do get through that, then jump on the Exodus Road series, 7 books, I believe, and that's kind of the end of the clan wars ish. ... question mark.
The stability of the clan wars, I would say at that point.
Yeah, it's the end of the end of the open aggression in the clan wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's where things leveled off. That's the best way to put it without ruining anything in there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Knox has another question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So he asks, are there any kinds of programs or apps that a noob like me could use to work as kind of a HUD and help me keep track of all the declared shots and heat levels? I could easily see myself making a lot of wasteful choices in the beginning.
I put one out there that's a player app. And I actually put it in the discussions.
Was that called Mech Factory?
Yeah, and that actually does a really good job of keeping track of your mech turn by turn. Helps heat management, helps ammo management. Is a really great resource if you don't have every single book, but you're like, oh my gosh, I know there's a variant of the Shadow Cat that has this on it, but I can't remember what it was called, whether it was a 2C or whatever, and I'm not good at those things. It will help you find that, which is wonderful, and it's also really good for helping you find it because you may want to try and print a 3D mini of it or purchase one, which is a huge thing. But the biggest part of it is that it's got the sheets for you in there so that you can go ahead and just start playing. There is a way in there to have multiple mechs, so you can keep track of like a company or a lance and have all the sheets there. But honestly, which is really great, the sheets for BattleTech are really good at keeping track of things.
Agreed.
They've changed over the years. The newer ones are much better done. And as long as you've got, again, that sheet, your battle mech sheet, and you've got the basically there's a 1-page flipped over that has the base rules on it. It walks you through everything.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. And the Quick Start box set comes with that, which is wonderful. And so if you're even remotely interested in it, I would say go to the store, get a Quick Start box set. It comes with mechs, it comes with maps, it comes with all the rules you need to get started.
Yeah,
and it's wonderful.
And I would say you say you see yourself making a lot of wasteful choices in the beginning, and I don't really think that's a thing.
No.
In BattleTech, like
No.
there's not really a way to make wasteful choices. I mean, especially if you're not building the battle mechs yourself. Which there are rules for.
Oh, yeah.
For customizing your battle mechs. But, if you're just taking stock battle mechs and fighting with them, there's no choice that you're going to make is going to be necessarily be wasteful. It's all just, movement and heat. Heat falls off every turn based on how many heat sinks you have.
Yep.
And the only thing you really need to keep track of that, you don't really even need an app to keep track of it. The most clever thing I've seen is that the heat scale is kind of on the lower right-hand side of the sheet of paper. I've seen people use a paper clip to frame the heat number.
Yep.
And slide it up and down the side of the paper.
There's also 3D printed pegboards that people use for both for heat and for tracking to say how much you've moved. And those are very simple pieces. And I've seen all kinds of those, but a lot of people just use a D20. They'll just keep a D20 and tick it up as their heat goes up,
That's not bad either.
or movement goes up. They might have another die for that. So there's a number of ways you can do it.
Yeah.
And I will flat out say, the more you play, the more you can skill yourself. You don't have to start with heat and ammo. You can start without that and just play the base rules and get used to movement and what happens in what turns, and then step it up to, okay, now we're going to have heat and ammo. Now we're going to have critical hits. Now we're going to have the next stage on top of that. And
there's also different tech levels you can play at. So I would suggest playing it with 3025 tech. 3025 is before the clans showed up. And it's all very low tech stuff. There's not a lot of weapon selection.
Missiles, lasers, ballistics.
Short and long range missiles, lasers, particle projection cannons, and then autocannons. That's literally it. The entire thing. And there's a couple variants of each type, but it's
quick to memorize.
It's quick to memorize, and you'll understand the differences. And there's only 3 or 4 variations of every type. An LRM 5, an LRM 10, LRM 15, and LRM 20. Guess how many missiles each one fires?
Simple as that.
And it's 1 damage per missile.
Yep.
There you go. You just learned BattleTech.
Yep.
You're
still going to roll the same dice to see if they hit. And their hit charts may change a little bit, but literally there's one chart that shows you how that works.
How many missiles landed, right?
Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, they made, again, as I said, they've made it basically a 2-sheet game. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Now, you can get into the advanced critical rolls and things like that, which take a little bit more, because there are some things for that. Like, you get hit in a critical area, it may not only affect that, and you have to make a roll to see if it actually does affect it, and if it does, what else does that happen? You can have ammo explode and things like that, which add to complexities of the game and make it more challenging. But again, you don't have to play with any of that.
Yeah, and describing it, I think, makes it sound a lot scarier than it actually is. Talking about it makes it sound super complex, but in play, it sounds like, okay, roll to hit. Let's see here. That's a left torso. Breach is internal hit. So we're going to roll to see if it crit. Oh, a critical hit. That's a 6 and a 2. My 6-2 on my left torso is engine shielding. Yeah, it's an engine chip.
And that's on your character sheet that helps you with that.
And boom, we just, that was 4 die rolls, and I just resolved the critical hit,
Yep. And you literally just mark it off on your sheet.
It's that quick.
Yep.
So
yeah, I almost say that D&D is more complex in doing anything. And that's I've played an entire combat scenario with 4 other players moving across a giant board for hours, and it still takes less time than the same type of combat would take in D&D, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because there's none of the, oh god, what am I going to do on this turn to make this 6 seconds count?
There's actually fewer rules.
Oh, way
because
fewer.
There's only so many things you can do with a battle mech with 4 medium lasers on it.
It has a directional face, too.
Right.
Like, sometimes you're just not pointed at him, so guess what? You gotta not do that.
Okay, well, I guess that's my turn. Whereas your wizard's going to be searching through his entire spell book going, do I want to cast Fireball or do I want to cast Lightning Bolt? Your fighter is thinking about, do I want to blow my second wind this turn, and get all 4 swings in on this guy? But again, there's only so many things you can do with a battle mech with 4 medium lasers. I used to pilot a catapult with dual LRM 20s on it. The thing would just bombard people.
Bunny ears.
But again, that's 2 die rolls.
Yeah.
1 for each long range missile launcher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm done.
Yep.
Next turn.
Yep.
Overwatch did get back with us.
Oh, he did.
In the live chat
Look at that.
about the books. He says Stackpole and Coleman were the best writers back when.
Yes.
And I agree with Stackpole, absolutely. Love that guy's writing.
Mm-hmm.
Stackpole wrote the Warrior trilogy and the Blood of Krinsky trilogy.
There you go.
Twilight of the Clans is 8 books, not 7. After you read Stackpole's early history stuff, check out Coleman's books on the FedCom, the Federated Commonwealth, Civil War.
Gotcha.
Patriots and Tyrants, Storms of Fate, and Endgame. Short version, read the Warrior trilogy, then Blood of Krinsky, then Twilight of the Clans, then Civil War by Coleman.
Okay, there we go.
So there's your suggestions on a primer for reading material.
Yes, and I would say if you have questions, throw them into chat. There are resources available to help you through a lot of it. And I know that we'll probably, as time goes on, talk more about BattleTech and the universe as a whole, but I think we are going to take FASA a little bit in their world building at a future time in a show on its own, just because their world building is significantly different.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's made an unbelievable contribution to gaming as a whole. Mm-hmm. It changed a lot of people. Things changed when they put things out, and it's made for a very rich experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
we got a few minutes left.
Sure.
Do we want to talk about some of the ancillary properties that have popped up around BattleTech?
Oh, geez.
Like the video games and such like that?
Yeah, we've had... Microsoft, when FASA did its initial breakup, and WizKids took off with some of the property...
Back up.
Oh, you're talking about the original games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, again, Crescent Soccer's Revenge was one of the originals.
Well, so way back in the day, though, there was this place called Virtual World.
Oh,
and they only had a
God.
couple locations, one of which was in Chicago. I know that one. I think the other one was in Seattle.
Well, there was the BattleTech centers that were part of... Virtual World was the hardware manufacturer.
Okay.
Who made it specifically for BattleTech, for the BattleTech centers, and Chicago was the big one. I wish I would have made it too, and never did. Later on, probably about, I want to say 6 to 7 years after the BattleTech Center closed, Virtual Worlds broke off into their own thing, but were able to keep the digital license for that.
Right. So what those were, though, is those were these
actual pods,
almost full sim pods.
Yes,
that ran. Now I think by modern standards, they're probably not that great.
Yeah.
But holy cow, back in the day,
loved
man.
it. I freaking loved being able to hit.
They were
could
like
play 16
whole enclosures
Yep.
of like if you played into the sit-down arcade games like Afterburner back in the day.
Yeah, it was like that, but you were actually sealed inside.
Oh man! All right,
it was an experience. But
we are running out of time here, though. So next week's topic is going to be a back to our mini series on encounters.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about environmental and extended encounters.
Yeah, I know that kind of questions people, but I think you guys will enjoy it. So.
Yeah. All right, so you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time at mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. You can find the link to that on our Twitter feed. We tweet that out all the time, as well as on our website, storytellerconclave.com. arcaneanthems.com.
We'd like to thank our Patreon members, especially our named members, Knox in the Box, Sam, Arcane Asylum, and Sparkle Motion. You guys really help us out every week, and we are looking forward to gather more so you guys can join us in the live chat. Our pre-show music is Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems. Our intro music, Beyond the Warriors, is by Guy Frog. You can find that at guyfrogmusic.weebly.com. Our outro music is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find that at soundcloud.com/midairmachine/tracks.
And a big shout out, as always, to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for supporting us and putting up with us every week as we do this. All of our friends who've sat with us at our tables and gamed with us over the years and given us experience to share with all of you. And you, every single one of our listeners. We love you so much. Stay safe.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.